Hello, I'd like to talk to you today about a subject that's going to make some people uncomfortable. Just want to talk to you about when you feel disappointed by God. And I'm going to start this off with a quote by Dr. King. Dr. King says, "There can be no deep disappointment where there is no deep love." Again, there can be no deep disappointment where there is no deep love. And the picture you see before you, I know you hear all this crazy rain behind me. I actually took this picture today in this park in Purdue, Kentucky, and right now it is raining like crazy instead. So, I want to talk to you about the times when you are going through the fire and life just sucks. Sometimes you feel like you have to beg and plead and twist God's arm to get your needs met. And the answer is still no. It's like life is pushing you to be your worst self. It's those challenging times in life when you've lost a friend or spouse, or you've had somebody very important to walk out of your life and leave you devastated for no reason, or you're ill, or your house was foreclosed on, or your car was repossessed, or your lights were turned out, but you prayed and you asked God before the no. You asked God for something that you genuinely needed, and the answer was no. You needed your lights to be on. And some people can say that's not really a need. People go without that all the time. But you needed your car. And it gets worse sometimes because sometimes when it rains right now, it absolutely pours and life sends you a storm. Because not only did your lights get turned off, now your transmission is broken down. And now you need a new alternator. And it's just things after things after things. But you didn't have the money to get your lights fixed. How can you get your transmission fixed or your alternator fixed? So I just want to say that when you've done everything you know to do to put faith to your works and the answer is still no, and not only is it no, but you've gotten, or things have gotten way worse for you. The times when those cliches like God is never late doesn't work, what do? Well, I have a few things that I want to say. And the reason I'm making this video is because this morning I thought of that scripture, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. It didn't say that you might, it said that you would. Sometimes life absolutely sucks. And you have to ask, why is it that the great holy God and King who gives you life and sometimes perfect health, for some people it's not perfect health, but who gives you life, which is a greater miracle, why it is he allows bad things to happen in your life? That I don't have the answer to, but I do want to say that those are the times when you need to, or I think it's helpful to divert your attention from what's going on. You can ask other people to pray for you, but whatever you do, don't sit down in the pity, in the pain, in rehearsing what hurt. Because all it's going to do is get worse. When you're going through the fire, start finding things that you're grateful for. It won't stop the pain, but it is the beginning of climbing out. Like when a dear friend deserts you, try to keep the good things that they brought into your life at the forefront of your mind. Because if you don't, the anger and bitterness will dominate. Find things that make you laugh. Funny things on YouTube, a movie that you love, good music that you like, not music that makes you more depressed, but music that lifts your spirit. Get out and do things with friends, or if you're a loner, go to the park, go walking. Do things to get yourself out of the environment of the pain. And that's the challenging thing in living in a country full of superheroes. We expect God to swoop down and save us, but most of the times it doesn't happen like that. And many times we have no answer as to why. We're just left with the pain. I was listening to Tony Caldwell, the great climber, and I learned a few things from him that I needed in my own life because I'm so used to people telling me, oh, God is never late. Well, it's your faith. You've heard people say, oh, well, that person to get healed, you didn't have enough faith. Or that didn't happen, you didn't have enough faith. But you had all the faith that you had at the time, and then you asked God to help your unbelief and to strengthen you through it. And the answer was still no. So, Tommy Caldwell said something in an interview that I liked. He said early on in his life, his father got them used to pushing through the difficulty. And I want to say to you today, not only get into a situation where your mind is changed and you're doing positive things for yourself, but also to push through to get what you want. Because I'll say, if you sit down, you never reach your goal. Like, I think it's Jack Canfield. He lost an agent before he did Chicken Soup for the Soul. He got 144 rejection from a publisher. And if he stopped at 120, we wouldn't even know who this guy was. But today, his books have sold over $1 billion in, made over $1 billion in sales. So I want to say we are walking through the valley of the shadow of death. And thank God we're doing as well as we are, even in the difficulties. And we know that there are scriptures that say, believe when you pray and you will receive it. Whatsoever things ye ask, you're going to have it. Just that kind of stuff. And I know that those are not exact quotes. Let me think of an exact scripture quote that I can give you that makes these things more challenging. Whatsoever things ye desire when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. That's one. Talks about the Father giving good gifts to them that ask Him. So there are plenty of scriptures in the Bible that says, "Ask and ye shall receive." And you ask, but you didn't receive what it was that you wanted. So I want to say that most of the time, there is a wait period between the promise and the manifestation of what you're asking for. It happened with David. Samuel went out and anointed him king in the shepherd's field, but it took years and a lot of pain and heartache before he saw the manifestation of the promise. Or Joseph. And all of this time, I'm sure these people were praying. He's like, hey, God, I know you said this, but now there's the pain. And many times through those difficult times of prayer, there is just more painful silence. And let's see, Abraham. Abraham got a promise. And it took years before that promise was manifested. So I want to encourage you to continue to put one foot in front of the other. Continue to walk towards what it is that you were asking for. And just continue to push and push. It's like Tyler Perry. We all know that at some point he was homeless living in his car. But today the guy's like a super multi-millionaire. So just keep pushing. Just keep going forward, because if you quit, you will never get what it is that you are looking for. And the last example that I want to use is the Apostle Paul. We always quote the scripture, I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. But we forget what was before that scripture. Because Paul says, I know how to be abased and I know how to abound. I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. And we know the Apostle Paul saw God 3 times for whatever his thorn in the flesh was. And I'm sure at some point he probably got what it was that he was asking for. But Um, the answer that came to him after the third time was, "My grace is sufficient for thee." So do the best that you can, and there is a reason that that scripture is there that says, when you've done all you can do, the stand therefore. Sometimes you can't take another step. All you can do is stand. At that point, find things to get your mind off of the pain of the problem and continue to push through. Never quit. Never give up.